we will go ahead and we will get started. Okay, thank you for attending our Getting Started Teaching CS in Middle School. Again, we do apologize for the delay. We are going to get started today talking about computer science in middle school, which I absolutely love. I am Leanne Grant, and I'm a PD specialist here at CodeHS. I was a middle school through high school computer science teacher for 10 years. With me, I have Scott, and Scott will introduce himself.
Yep. Scott Hedrick, and I have bring a lot of different experiences to the table. So for those of you, and you'll hear my story a little bit more, but for those of you that are starting teaching computer science in middle school for the first time and are scared, I've been there. I was a business education major and taught mainly business classes to start my life, and then gradually progressed into this adventure of computer science. So that's kind of a little bit about me, but I'll share more of my story as I present. But this is my was it 18th year of teaching, so doing a lot of different things. So all right.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I see Travis has entered his name and it's from Tulsa, Oklahoma in the chat. You can go on to the next slide, please.
Yep.
All right, so what we're going to be doing today is we are going to do our introductions. I'm going to drop this in the chat for everyone. This is access to the slides, so you have this available for you today. And then we're going to talk about who's the middle school learner, some challenges and solutions for computer science in middle school that we face, do a middle school overview, and then course exploration and some teacher tools information if we have time at the end. The main focus will be on our courses and definitely that course explorations as well. We have another person from Connecticut. Oh, STEM and robotics. Awesome. Right, as we get going, you can go on to the next slide, please. As we get going, what I am going to ask is that if you would like to talk back and forth between each other, drop links or anything, you use the chat. If you have any questions specifically for CodeHS or about the courses, anything like that, or you have specific questions for Scott, to drop them in the Q&A, please. The Q&A is at the bottom, and that will allow you to talk to one of us directly. I will probably be answering questions in the chat or in the Q&A in the background while Scott is talking, and then I will stop him and give him some questions if he needs to answer some of them as well. Okay. If you do not have a free CodeHS account, you can go on to the next slide. I would love for you to sign up. So all of our teacher accounts and our student accounts are free. You can sign up, you have access to all the curriculum that we will show you today for free. And how you would do that is going to, it's not supposed to say drop in chat, but codehs.com/sign up. And what we'll do is when you do sign up, we do ask that you use your teacher email. That way we can verify you as a teacher. And so students aren't allowed to get teacher accounts. Okay. All right. Once you are either logged in or you sign up, I'm going to put one last link in here really quick before we get started. Today you will receive, and we'll do this at the end as well, but you will receive a certificate of completion for attending today. And the link that I'm about to drop, you have to be logged in or you have to be signed up and logged in to be able to click on this link for it to work. So if you're still in the process of signing up, that's fine. We will drop this again later on. That's no big deal. If you are signed up, you can click on that certificate of completion link there. All right. I already did the slides. The very last thing that I am going to drop to you is our class code. So what this is once you are logged in, we would love for you to join a section, and we have created a middle school section that has our three different courses in it. And so you could preview the information in there. So what you would do is you're essentially joining this as a student. This is how a student would view it. So you would go to sign into CodeHS, browse to the following URL, click on the URL, and then you will join the workshop section from there. If you are not familiar with who we are here at CodeHS, you can go to the next slide. CodeHS is a comprehensive platform. We have curriculum for elementary, middle, and high school students. Our middle school and high school are free curriculum. It is all completely web-based. And everything is integrated into our site, so there's no additional plugins that you're going to need to complete any of our curriculum at all. Okay. And then moving on to the next slide, we also have instant feedback and submission systems, extensive grading and tracking tools for teachers. And like I said, it was all web-based. All right. So the next slide is a Slido. Is it not working for you? Actually, can I share my screen really quick? I created the Slido, so that's why it's going to. I'm going to share my screen really quick. We'll do this and I'll hand it back to you. Okay. All right. So here's a Slido. All you have to do is either take a screenshot or you can go to slido.com and you can enter in, whoops, let me go back. Sorry. Come on. There it is, slido.com, and enter in that 5477505. We would love for you to know or to tell us, how would you describe the middle school learner? This is something that I've done in several of my middle school workshops. See if anybody can get in. Don't see that anybody is in. If you are having issues getting in, could you possibly let us know in the chat? We can always skip the slide if it's not something that's working at this point. Oh, we have one participant distracted. Absolutely. Middle schoolers are often distracted. Is there anything else that anybody can enter? Slido.com, you enter the number 5477505, or you can use the QR code that here is on the slide. Disengaged, absolutely. Maybe hyper is another word. Inquisitive might be another word that I've come up with. There's are lots. But the reason that we're asking this, and I will let you share your slide now, go back to your slideshow, Scott. The reason we're asking this is now we're going to talk about who that middle school learner actually is. And I will let Scott take over from here.
Yep. Well, thank you, Leanne. As we go through this time together, as you're starting the school year, as we get into this and talking about our learners, we all know how important they are. Kind of in my background too is that and I said I'd talk a little bit about it is that you're gonna find some of you out there might be like, I know everything there is to know about, computer science, and there might be some of you who are in the middle, and there might be some of you that are just scared to death of what's to come. And I remember teaching my first coding class to middle schoolers in 2009. And the one thing I really like about CodeHS is it's such an easy to use platform to teach computer science to our students. Way back when it wasn't as easy. There wasn't as many things out there to do, and there wasn't a lot of sports out there for teachers. So I like this. And for those of you that are worried and concerned, kind of understand this is like I made my way through this journey, and you'll find out that as we go through this presentation and as Leanne helps us through it too, that there's going to be times where I don't know all the answers to where everything's at, but like I said, there's a lot of cool things in here. Coming back to what we had earlier, what do we talk about the middle school learner? Disengaged, squirrely, um, how it is, oh, I forgot my pencil, or I forgot to use the bathroom 5 periods ago. That's just typical middle schoolers. That's why we love them. Some days we love them more than others, and then there's other days we would well, just pull our hair out. So, but you know, I think a lot of times that this picture right here kind of fulfills exactly what a middle schooler is. Just a lot of um kind of an unusual time and sometimes in our lives. And I remember when I was a few years ago, we had bottle flipping. If you remember that, that was a big craze. I mean, that probably distracted the class for about 5 minutes each class period because you have people trying to flip their bottles to get it upright. And then, of course, you'd have the student that have the water in it and it'd spill all over. Then you'd have to have your custodial staff come in. So those are the types of kids that we come in, and but the thing I'm going to tell you is this, I had a young man this year and that didn't really seem to you know really enjoy a lot of things about middle school, but he did a fantastic job of coding, and that's how we connected. Now whether or not he's going to code for the rest of life, I don't know, but I was really really proud of him for doing what he did. So in class. Um, and other things too. We also know that our kids, they do a lot of gaming. I mean, that's just how things work with our kids, and they like to play games and learn how to play games. And I've had to learn to play games again, so I can relate to our kids. So, they have all these different things and how we can keep our students engaged. So I think what's the big craze now? Fortnite. And when I say it right, I probably said it wrong too. Usually I say the big craze wrong, but yep, Fortnite got a lot of kids there. So they got a lot of things going on. Um, and this one kind of keeps going, this slide kind of keeps going on with some of the different things that our children face and how they are in middle school. So I would say, like I said, it's just an interesting time in kids' lives. So um I think that as you go through this, the one thing is we go through these different slides about our kids, is you just have to understand the one thing is that looking through it, like our students love to be on the computers. They don't always like to be on the computers to do computer programming, but they do like to be on the computers. And I think as I look through this, I've taught many, many, many students over the years, and I would say, a handful. When I say many, many, that's probably, I've been in two school districts. School district I'm in now is closer to where I live, but it's a smaller school district. So we have about a graduating class of anywhere between 40 to 50. The place I was at before was a little bit more affluent, and that was about 60 to 70 kids. So, I can probably think of about maybe five, six, seven, eight kids that went into computer science at college. But obviously, what we're teaching here is really, really going to last with them well for a long time. So, challenges of computer science in middle school, abstract concepts. It's tough. It's hard. Like I said, I haven't done it before. Or, uh, sometimes the technical resources and all the teacher preparedness and gender disparities. So, when you look at all these things, I think the hard part is trying to, I think most of us can relate that it's hard to find staff for your schools. I know definitely in my school it is. And sometimes the last thing that they're worried about is hiring a computer science teacher. Fortunately, in my school, we have three. And in South Dakota, that is very, very, very rare. Very rare. So, but this is kind of the thing. And like I said, I mentioned this earlier. If you are worried about teaching computer science to middle schoolers who've never done it before, CodeHS has a really good platform to help you through things. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So, um, but bridging the gap. Um, A lot of the things that you're going to see is this, and I'll just kind of bring them all to the forefront so you can look at is, one of the things is that we do our best to prepare students for school, or is not for school, but for the real world. And, I think thinking back to my education, I graduated in 2001, and I think that, um, we talk about preparing our students for the future, jobs that haven't been even thought of yet. And I think about how my teachers prepared me. And I think the main thing is, and I know there'll be people that'll disagree, but the main thing is to challenge students because my teachers, while they maybe taught me some skills or some things that are obsolete now, um, how they challenged me helped me definitely. So, um, I think the main thing is if when I first started teaching computer science, it was very bland, for lack of a better term. The one thing that's nice with CodeHS, it's engaging. There's some fun things with it that we'll talk a little bit about later, and then there's also different points where people can come into. Now, I'm going to be very honest. I kind of teach everything at a basic point, try to get people involved, try to get them exposed to it just to see if the students will like it. When students get to eighth grade, they go to Mr. Hill. Mr. Hill goes through the details of Python programming. He does a fantastic job of it. He's an awesome computer science teacher. I'm more, like I said, kind of the entry level, kind of try to give everybody a little bit of a flavor of what's out there. So, and there's a lot of different ways that you can meet the needs of computer science to our students, different platforms. But like I said, CodeHS does a really, really awesome job, and I really appreciate what they've done. So, like I said, there's other platforms that are out there. Seemed like about 8 years ago, everything under the sun was out there. And then there's a few that are pretty good. But like I said, I really appreciate CodeHS and everything else it works through. And then there's the integration in other subjects areas. I think I work a little bit with our math teacher on trying to integrate computer science into those subject areas and prepare our students for high school, or I might even say just for life, because they're going to need to have problem solving skills. Because if they don't have it, they're gonna struggle. The one thing, if you take a look at I'm going a little bit too fast. The one thing that I like about CodeHS and is, just some of when we talk about customizable curriculum, you're going to have an opportunity to kind of look through resources. Mind you, you might not fully comprehend everything. Like we're talking about being that new computer science teacher, so you're going to be learning with the students, and that scares people. Trust me, it scares me too. But you got to start somewhere. And like I said, that's one of the nice things that about this curriculum is that you can customize it. You can start from wherever you want to, anywhere from, like cybersecurity to Python programming. If you're asking what programming I teach my students, it's introductory Python. That's what I use. It's kind of the basics. And then there's like some of the different pathways and teacher training options and also the curriculum integration. Lynn, I am going to ask you, is there anything that you would want to expand on this slide or not? Not to call you on the table. Okay. All right. All right. So we have a modular solution for middle school CS. And anytime you hear the word CS, computer science is what we're talking about. So, we all know that each and every one of us is going to be expected to do different things. Like I said, in the middle school I teach fifth, sixth, and seventh grade. Mr. Hill teaches eighth grade. Mr. Hill is going to be specifically coding. He goes extensively through Python, where I kind of go through what's called a potpourri, meaning I teach a lot of different things. So there's different module focuses on specific topic in CS. 10 hours introductory and can be taught in a standalone module. I've used a lot of different things. How I got involved with CodeHS was through the hour of code. And if you're like, well, what is the hour of code? It's a time where you can bring a lesson, a very brief lesson, and it's a good way just to kind of get your feet wet into CodeHS, in my opinion, is teach us, an hour lesson to your students that relates to computer science. So um, it, that's just an option for you. The modules are aligned to both state and CSTA standards. We have two new modules. Some are specifically designed for lower middle school or upper middle school, and others are designed for any middle school grade. One of the things you got to be aware of is this, and I've taught in two schools, and had many different groups come through to work with CodeHS. And sometimes people, you have to understand what works for me and what works for one group of students may be completely different. That's just how that works. Some groups that I've worked with are like to be more independent, and here it is. Others want to be more guided, for lack of a better term. So there's something out there for everyone. So, and you can take a look here just at some of the different pathway options, computer science explorations that you could take a look through. Um, and then you also have the Python middle school. I've worked a little bit more with the Python part of things in my career. The one thing that's nice about CodeHS is they continually expand their curriculum. So each year I look for just for different things. If you're looking at what I've used over the years, it's mainly been with the Python basics with tracing. I've in prior years, summers, I've talked a little bit about that more in depth during the Python sessions that are out there. So, but I would say one of the things I'm going to point out on this too. If you're new to computer science and you really want to hit home some of the things that we can all relate to, I would talk about digital citizenship. I know in my school district, that's a huge issue about how we interact online. And it's been a tremendously helpful to our students. I understand that our students do things on the internet or through their gaming or whatever it might be that are silly and they should know better, but at least they've heard it. So that is one thing I would really kind of point to when it talks about, computer science is getting those kids being aware how to be safe online and also be good digital citizens. All right. And then you can kind of take a look at the different courses that are there. I can move my little screen thing out. Where so you have computer science explorations 1 and 2. And I always think that like if you're ever trying to figure out where to start with, I always try to start off with the explorations 1, or as you look through the curriculum, as we will a little bit later, just doing some of the more basic things to start with because it's easier to say, okay, I did something basic. It's now we can get a little bit harder, challenge our students more. And there's other ways that students can work through this independently too. Here's some of the different courses that are out there with benches of Carol and Tracy and exploring computing. Um, I would say the ones, if you're looking at this list, the ones that I have dealt more with deal with like the probably more of the Carol adventures than anything. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't recommend the other things, but that's what I have the most experience with. I have a lot of experience with the coding part of things, not as much experience with other parts, but that, like I said, CodeHS is continually expanding their offerings. So I would, you can definitely take a look at more of these pieces that are out there for you, especially game design, because I know that that's something I would really, really think would be very engaging that I want to work with my students with in the near future. So, but yeah, each course has 5 modules, total of 50 hours of content. So if you're 50 hours, you're probably, that's quite a feat to try to get through everything in here. But so you might have to do some pick and choose. And I should say this disclaimer, in my fifth and sixth grade classes, I see the kids every 3 days. Okay. My seventh grade class, I see them for a quarter. All right. So everybody in here, if you're like, gosh, how am I going to organize this? Scott does this. I should do exactly what Scott does. No, it's going to be different. Some of you see kids for an entire year, some for a semester, some every other day, some for a quarter, some for 2 weeks. When I taught in my other school district, I'd see kids for 2 weeks each quarter, and I'd see a different group. So I got them for 2 weeks at a time, then I'd see a different group. So they'd have me for about 9 weeks. So, the other part, that you're going to see is the kind of the mix and match, kind of pulling different things from one point to another, um, which is really, really cool. So the one thing that's nice about CodeHS is that you can kind of take different courses and mix and match and put everything together. So basically, if you're like, well, I really don't want this part in here of the course, I certainly can use something different. So, and you can read that too. So to make sure that the modules work for that. And this slide talks a little bit, just kind of gives you a little bit um, of the mix and match. Easy enough for me to say. Leanne's laughing at me because I'm tongue-tied. Mix and match middle school course. So, as you go through this, you can kind of see how to work through that and kind of assign different things. And I think the main thing is my advice as if you're new to CodeHS is start simple. Just really start with a basic thing. Um, if you're teaching next year and you're like, gosh, I got to do this, this, and this, and some of this might be overwhelming. Start with something really basic, get your kids into it, and go from there. I mean, that might be just one little course that's for an hour, and that's perfectly fine. That's how I got started. So, and if you're like Mr. Head, or if you're like Scott, I'm also teaching high school. CodeHS is great for middle and high school. Matter of fact, I used it more for high school to start with, and now I've used it a little bit more for middle school. So, here are some of the modules that are out there. Um, that we can work through. So I probably haven't done as much with the JavaScript. I've done a little bit more with Python. That doesn't mean that one's better than the other, one programming language. What I've been told by other people is the programming languages that you want to focus on, especially for younger kids, is JavaScript or Python. Python's just preferential, and it just is up to you what you want to do. But these are kind of some of the different things that you can work um, with your students. So you can get Carol the dog to do different fun little adventures. So this is kind of the lower middle school module, fifth and sixth grade. And just because something like this says fifth and sixth grade, in my career, I would say that if like I've had, I try to, especially when it comes to coding or computer science, sometimes it says fifth and sixth. Does that mean I can't use it in seventh grade? I mean, you certainly can use it in seventh grade. Sometimes I tend to try to make it easy on my students to start with, just kind of get a sense of where they're at. You can kind of see some of the different Carol adventures, and what your students are going to do is they're going to program or code the Carol, the dog, to do what you see on the screen there, which is paint, color. And if you see this, and you can kind of see Carol Adventures too, it's getting to be a little bit more involved. Okay. Moving from up and down. And then the Tracy Adventure, get a little bit of an opportunity to use some design skills and kind of get everything, draw something and kind of work through things. So it gets a little bit from bigger to small. So, all right. Upper middle school modules. The one thing that you're going to see on this, that's going to probably jump out at you is the exploring game design. I have not started that yet, but that to me, if you want to, if you really want to get kids engaged, that's probably a good way to do that, I would say. Because anytime you get kids involved with the game, they're going to get really, really, really excited. Um, Leanne, do you have anything to expand on in the exploring game design?
Yes, I would say, so both are exploring game design and are exploring art with code, both use JavaScript. And they're just different libraries of JavaScript. And so it definitely would want it, you can jump into it without knowing JavaScript, but it might be just a tiny bit um difficult for students who have never seen JavaScript ever before. If you've only focused on the Tracy adventures or something like that. That's why we also consider this exploring code with Carol to be a precursor, just so they can get used to the syntax really of JavaScript, which isn't that much different than Python, honestly. But that's the one thing that I would say is that it would be easier if they have had at least an introduction to JavaScript before the game designer or the exploring art with code, but they're very much, both of them are very interactive.
Leanne, because this is a little bit newer to me, but so like if I was and there's some of our I'm sure some of our participants are either on laptops or Chromebooks. Are all of these what we've talked about up until this point, or are they for sure on be used on Chromebooks or laptops?
Everything can be used on completely on the web. There's no downloads, there's no plugins, there's anything like that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because I know that I think when I was talking with Laura, who was the previous person, yeah, and this is kind of a discussion for everybody. I know that this was in development, so this is something that I would definitely, obviously, Leanne made a very good point. You want to have a background knowledge because if you just, hey, exploring game design, go after it, you're gonna find some kids that are gonna be disappointed because they need some precursor skills. Any other advice you would give to me or participants about this other than the Chromebook and laptop or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, most of our modules are made so that you can just jump into them, but you made a really good point, Scott, is that they will be disappointed because it might be too difficult for them not knowing that background. So that's really the only suggestion.
You know, yeah. Some of the, having done, and you're going to hear me, you obviously know I like to play games because I'm going to sit here and talk a little bit more about it. But, the one of the things that's nice about CodeHS is it's going to, the game design is going to be supported. Um, and one of the things I used before, what ended up happening um, to teach game design, it was really great, but it just ended up it didn't get supported by Chromebooks. You had to have laptops, and so it just didn't become as feasible. So that's the nice thing about these, what we've talked about so far. If you have Chromebooks, laptops, this is going to work well for you. So, as you can kind of see, you're exploring chord with Carol, the dog there, and each of these parts here are going to give you just kind of an idea of what the gist of everything, um, of what to do. I don't think, as you go through the coding, it's not like they're trying to challenge you, but they're not trying to super challenge you so that you end up getting your students ended up getting frustrated. And as I say this, and you're going to hear me say this time and time again, the toughest part for a teacher to say, and some of you are going to disagree with me on this one, is I don't know. I think I've sat beside students before and we've tried to figure things out for about 15, 20 minutes and, just doesn't always work. But um, it's once again, it's problem solving. And sometimes the best person to help in the room is going to be another student as long as they don't do it for the other person. So, Yep. So don't be afraid, at least in my opinion, don't be afraid to have other students help. And this gives you just kind of a little bit of a glimpse of exploring art with code. Years ago, when I first started teaching coding, we used what was called Scratch programming. Some of you might have heard that, but I had a young lady that really liked to animate and draw, and she was a fantastic artist, and she really took off with coding simply because she liked the art. She had some of the best art animations I've ever seen. She was that good. So there's a lot of students that like to explore art. So, and if you take a look at these all grades, got digital citizenship, exploring the internet, exploring web design, exploring computing. So I always highlight this one if you really want to get involved with some things. The digital citizenship, please, peace, not police, peace is very, very important, and we found that very important in our school district. But you can kind of see some of the other parts that are out there. So kind of go through and explore the internet, network simulations. So how everything works. I'll let you take a look at that. If you've ever, I don't know if any of you are tech coordinators, but if you're ever trying to work in a networking closet, if you don't know what that is, it's basically where all the wires are for your school. And you're trying to take one thing or two things and make it into one, it's a pain in the butt. So if somebody ever asks if you want help with that, please don't. No. Um, learn a lot. So, these are some of the activities that'll be out there from the exploring computing part. Um, just with cloud computing and physical computing. Um, a little bit of an activity. I don't know. I would say this is kind of an important topic because, with cloud computing, that's something that's definitely different because a lot of our information in South Dakota is housed in Madison, South Dakota, which is where Dakota State University is. 20 years ago, 15 years ago would have been in Flanders, South Dakota on site. So there's kind of some interesting things that have changed over time. So when you get to be older, you realize how things change. So just kind of give you a couple overviews here. Just with Python basics with Tracy, 60 hours, one semester of content. As you look at this, some of you might get overwhelmed. Oh gosh, Scott, I only see, my children for a week, okay, or I see them for a full year or whatever. And the one thing I'm going to point out is CodeHS is very flexible. You can make things work. Don't feel like you have to start in with this course or just try to get your students into a course or something that's a little bit more basic. This one talks about Python basics with Tracy too. Um, Obviously that there's just kind of a more advanced course that's work through things, and then you have the Python basics. And I've said before, I'm more of a Python programming person. I am not a gifted programmer, disclaimer, but I still try to help teach students how to use that. If you come to me or talk to Leanne and I later and you're like, hey, I did JavaScript with my students, great. Any type of programming or coding you can do with your students is wonderful. So, uh, some of these other things here today, case in point, you got introduction to physical computing with microbit. If you're not familiar with a microbit, it's a wonderful, you can kind of see a picture there of what that looks. I've used it before. The good thing about microbit is it teaches the students about physical computing and it actually can program it to do different things. The bad thing is we talked about teaching middle schoolers. Guess what they do with microbits? They throw them at each other. They step on them. They drop them. They do all sorts of things. They hit each other with so they do all these things. Middle schoolers are wonderful people. So I think microbits are pretty sturdy, but just be aware. Anytime you involve physical computing, it's tough. Creating a game with Roblox. Did I say that right? Because I had to add that into an iPad today. So I don't have as familiar, but then, like I said, if you can get kids into games, they love it. And coding and science and coding and math. Um, in my experiences, students do not like math, and so when you bring in math into coding, sometimes they get a little flustered. But once again, it's really good to make the connections that are there. So, and there's some other new courses, some web design and introduction to game design that are there once again. Those are some engaging things that students can get into. All right. So, all right, kind of getting into some hold on here. Going through this here. Um, as we kind of get into this part here, and kind of see that as we work through things, you can kind of change some of the coding aspects of an image that are out there. Um, whether it's, adding in different things or sayings or different parts that might be things that your students will be doing. Like I said, a lot of different have a lot of different opportunities that are available to them. All right, you're making things, you got a rabbit there. And so write a program to help Carol put each tennis ball in the red bucket. So, obviously this is getting in for those of you that are overwhelmed at this point. You're like, Scott, what's going on here? Just gotta take a deep breath, because this will be some of the things that your students do. So for those of you that really like the syntax and this part, this is pretty good for you. So, but write a program to help Carol put each tennis ball into the bucket. So obviously there's a code there that says, well, you got to take the ball. All right, and then you got to put the ball. So those are some of the different codes that your students would use. All right, and you can kind of put ball, take ball, move, turn left. And obviously Carol has to move, move forward in this case, or turn left. All right, you can kind of see some of the exercise that's out there for people. And basically, if you take a look here, your code goes into this area. You have a way to check your code and kind of see how things operate for them. The one thing that I like about CodeHS, and I know this is kind of kind of like I said, taking a bird's eye view of what we're looking at, is be aware that yes, there is access to the answers. And that's a good thing. And some of you might say it's a bad thing. Here's what I always tell the kids, and this was high school coding class that I taught 3 or 4 years ago, is I says, yeah, here's the answers. And I says, I want you to understand this, the answers are here, but I want you to try without the answers. Now, granted, the kids that I taught wanted to be there, and it was an elective. Okay, and that'll be a different way of how you set up your class too. So, some of you might not want to even talk about the answers. I appreciate the answers, because sometimes we go through and we go through and we go through and we just can't figure things out. So, and others of you out there are like, well, Scott, I don't want the people to have answers. I get it. I wholeheartedly understand. You don't want people to have the answers. That makes sense. So, um, this part here just kind of gives you a little bit of an overview of a sample lesson plan, and just kind of some of the things that are out there, and you can kind of go through that. The one thing about that I really like about CodeHS when we're going through lessons is there's a lot of support, so that you don't always have to feel like you have to be in front of the class to teach. So as you're going through the lesson, there are videos. Um, at least there used to be videos. They used to have videos that would run through CodeHS, and one that was run through YouTube. So if you're like, Scott, YouTube's blocked, there's other videos that come in to support things and support what you're doing. Um, and so the one thing I really like about their lesson plans, yes, there's supports. Yes, there's ways that students can work independently. Yes, there are supports for the teacher themselves. Because you will have students that'll just take off with this and they go. They move forward. It's no big deal. So other students need a little bit of help. You also might want to make sure that as you go through CodeHS, that if you're looking at a buy, you might want to, if you don't have headphones in your class or earbuds or whatever you want to call them, that would help, especially if you got students watching videos. Um, if you're going to watch them together, that's great, no worries. But it is kind of nice to have those things. So if you have some in your room or have a supply list, you want them to do those. But like I said, everything takes a lot of different things. And I will also say this: most of you in here, I'm going to guess, are probably somewhat veteran teachers. If you're new, and this part overwhelms you, gosh, there's just so much stuff. We all know it. You gotta make it your own. Okay, we're all good teachers here. You gotta make it your own. But that first year is just always tough doing things, but you'll get through it. And this talks about the lesson variations. Like I said, I love the videos. They are awesome. They help. Um, like I said, I kind of tend to let the students take over things as they go. I do not use a lot of not necessarily discussion questions as much, but there's just a lot of exercises. I do utilize a lot of students helping one another, not doing it for one another, helping one another. So if you're like, because you're only one person in that room, and if you have 20 people, you're going to need to have student help. So I don't, like I said, some of you might explore things as a class. I didn't typically do that. When we talk about openers and closers, I would have usually would try to occasionally have an exit ticket about what the students learned. Sometimes with coding being as thinking intensive as it is, I really don't want to overwhelm the kids by having like a quiz or some different things. I try to keep it as light as possible. All right. You might be different. That's perfectly fine. So, um, the one thing that you can do as you go through, you can explore the course offerings, looking at some of the different things. You can kind of see the little diagram that's there. Um, find something that you want to do. I mean, obviously, we can say like the AP and the AP classes and different things, but just be really, really, I would say, just always start small and then work your way up. Start with a class or start with something that's an hour or, an hour or two or maybe a day and just kind of work your way through that. Other resources that are available. You can become a CodeHS certified educator. You can earn CodeHS micro credentials. Join the Facebook group. You can also follow CodeHS on social media. Um, like with any time, the one thing that's nice is with CodeHS is and working with CodeHS the last few years and even before I came on as a into this program, they were the employees there were extremely helpful. It isn't one of those deals where we go through this training and then you have a question later and then you never hear from them again. They're very, very responsive to kind of getting resources out there. And not only that, and seeing them at like in South Dakota, we actually see CodeHS on site every now and again at different professional development opportunities, which is very, very nice. So we definitely appreciate that. Sometimes you get into other resources that are out there and you get stuck on something and you never hear back or the company ends up going under and you never see them. But CodeHS is going very, very, very strong. So I know I kind of went through that a little bit fast. But Leanne, is there anything that you wanted to add or kind of fall back on before we get too far?
I probably would just ask if anybody has any questions or if there's anything that you want us to go over more in depth before we wrap up. Um, I mean, even taking a look at some of the lessons on the platform or anything, I can show any of that. I did have a question about students. Yes, students can sign into CodeHS using their Google account, and it does integrate with Google Classroom. So when you um, create a course and create a section, you can actually choose to use Google Classroom to import your students automatically, and that is part of our platform.
Yeah, one thing I would add to that is this. Um, because I would see a different group every 6 weeks. One thing you got to be careful of is this: when you enroll students into your Google Classroom, um, and there's a student out there on a particular day, you want to not only make sure that you re-enroll them into Google Classroom, but that you resync them into CodeHS. The reason I say that, that ended up being a 15 or 20-minute ordeal, and it was all my fault because I forgot to resync them into CodeHS. So just be aware.
Does anybody have any other questions about our middle school curriculum, about anything that we showed you today, the catalog, the courses, anything at all? I'm not seeing anything come through the chat. Oh, there is. Okay. Do you have any suggestions or ideas for keeping students engaged who finish early? Scott, would you like to take that or would you like me to?
We can both answer. One of the things is, with students that finish early, I alluded to this earlier, they become my number one helpers. Because I will try to have them help people that are struggling. That's one way to kind of keep them engaged. Leanne, did you have other
Actually, yes.
things?
So one
Okay.
of the things that I used to do in the classroom, whether it was, middle school or high school, is to always have supplemental material available to them. So it could be like an extra, like a choice board afterwards. So I create a choice board with maybe some different projects. So we have a project catalog on CodeHS that you can look through. They are projects that have submitted by both people at CodeHS and teachers. So you do want to look through them and make sure that they're appropriate for your classroom and that age group. But always having an availability of choosing one of those projects to do would be absolutely great as well. And so you can add those directly to the course at the very bottom, or you can maybe create a choice board with some links that brings the students to the projects. I do like the idea of having students help as well. I also did that in the classroom, but I know that I have some students in my class who were very coding inclined and they went through stuff very, very quickly, but they were not personable people.
Yeah.
And they couldn't necessarily break it down. So I gave them the option. So you can either work on some of these extra projects and get some more ideas, or you can help another student. So I would give them that choice there as well. So I think that's probably one of the best ideas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any other questions? You're welcome, Travis. All right, if there are no other questions, we will end up wrapping up. I would love for you to take a moment to complete our webinar survey here and just let us know how we did. And again, I do apologize for a little bit of a late start this morning. You will be receiving the recording and the slides in an email from me today, if not tomorrow. And if you did get signed up late or signed in later, I'm also dropping that certificate of completion link that you will receive an email afterwards to be able to view that certificate of completion for the full PD.
Yeah. Yeah. And just finally, I know as we go through there's probably for those of you that are more experienced, this is probably just more informative. For those of you that are starting this, that are just either got pushed into this or are new, just be aware that, like in my situation, when you start somewhere, it's going to be okay, and it's okay to not know. It's okay to be a little bit freaked out because it's tough. But I also think that the one of the things that I would say that everyone has now, as opposed to when I started teaching in 2008, is you have CodeHS. Uh, there's a lot of supports. Start basic. Don't feel like you have to change the world in one day and you're going to be fine. So, I mean, take yourself away from the cliff because I've known many people that are fantastic teachers, and if you've taught one subject, hopefully you can teach another all right. So, but yeah, that's all I have.
And if one of the things that I think we didn't go over is that we have a lot of courses that do integrate into other curriculum as well. So if you've been a math teacher or you've been a science teacher and now you're coming into CodeHS at a middle school level, we have those that will combine the two. Or maybe you want to um, collaborate with another teacher and to do those together. They're working on something in math and you can do the computer science part of it at the same time. So there's a lot of options on what you can do. And the great thing about CodeHS is with the curriculum the way it is, it's easy for you as a teacher just to stay, especially if you're new to it, just one step ahead of the students to be able to learn the content as you go as well. I did that at the high school level, even. I didn't know Java when I started teaching APCSA. And so I would stay right ahead of the students and learning the information as I was teaching it. So I would learn it and then teach it to them. And it worked very, very well. And especially at the middle school level, the in the mix and match and the CS explorations course, they are very, very interactive, very interactive, and it does keep the students engaged. Are there any other questions? Great. I am going to do one thing before we go. I do want to thank Scott so much. We do have a couple other webinars coming up. This afternoon, we have a new game development in Unity. It is a high school game development course. And then we have a collaborating with AI um, workshop this Thursday. And then next week, we have our very last one of the summer, which is teaching game development in Unity. So we have our course launch this afternoon, and then we'll go through in depth for an hour and a half on how to teach it. And our back to school webinars will then also start on September 3rd, and you should start to see them populate in the codehs.com/free PD website as well. And if you want to learn more about CodeHS, if you're interested in bringing CodeHS to your school or your district, we have a very easy way for you to do that. All you would have to do is click on codehs.com/learn more. So again, thank you, Scott, so much. Thank you all for attending today and being patient with us at the very beginning of the webinar. And if there are no other questions, I can hang out for a couple more minutes. That's fine. If you guys have some more questions, but if not, then we will say thank you very much and have a great day. And thank you for attending with us over the summer and spending your free time with us. And thank you for teaching middle schoolers. That is a feat in itself. Thank you guys. Have a great day.